Welcome back to Formula One from Losail International Circuit in Qatar. It is time for the final sprint of the year. This is our 19-lap contest held on a Saturday with 8 points on offer for our winner. It is round 23 of the longest ever Formula One World Championship season. Lando Norris starts on pole with McLaren trying to beat Ferrari to the Constructors' title. 5.4 kilometers, 3.3 miles. You've got the main straight, you've got one DRS zone, and then you've got a high-speed test that is unrelenting all the way to the 16th and final corner of this racetrack. Not much in the way of elevation, but plenty expected in terms of action. It's another sprint day in Formula One. We're about to go racing in Qatar. This is the Losail International Circuit, and we are under the floodlights. The grid is set. We have 18 cars on the grid and 2 in the pit lane. Franco Colapinto finds himself in the pit lane along with Sergio Perez, both of them making changes after tough days yesterday. So the final car on the grid is Zhou Guanyu. He's next to Esteban Ocon, 17th for Alpine. And then it's Yuki Tsunoda, who is next to Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Tsunoda felt there was more pace in the car, but was just knocked out of SQ1. Valtteri Bottas is 13th. He's next to Lance Stroll on the grid, both looking to fire their cars into the top 8. The top 8 scoring points in this. This is Fernando Alonso's best start in a sprint since way back in Miami. He's next to Alex Albon. Then it's Liam Lawson making the top 10, important for his future career prospects. Nico Hülkenberg again mighty over one lap, but they lost the mini battle between Alpine, Haas and RB, with Gasly starting in 8th. Lewis Hamilton despondent with 7th. This is the lowest Max Verstappen has ever started a Formula One sprint race. First time ever he's been outside the top 4. He's next to his old rival Charles Leclerc. Then it's Carlos Sainz, the lead Ferrari on the grid. They're 3-3 in the head-to-head so far this year. Oscar Piastri, a winner 1 year ago of this race, and a really intriguing front row. George Russell versus Lando Norris. Russell was able to get by a McLaren and lead laps in the sprint 1 year ago. 19 laps on the board. We're looking forward to that immensely. It's the final sprint of the year as we welcome you to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me, 13-time Grand Prix winner David Coulthard, Jolyon Palmer, former Formula One driver as well. There's plenty to be decided out there, but gentlemen, the wind, it's intense out there.
That's as strong as any wind that I remember in recent Grand Prix. So that is definitely going to be a factor. Brilliant when you're driving into a headwind, side winds, tailwinds, totally unpredictable.
Jolyon, we've seen cars snapping all over the place this weekend. It's only going to add to the difficulty.
Yeah, it's two things. They're going to be snapping a lot because as soon as you have your different angles, when you're into a headwind directly, it's fantastic, isn't it? It's so much downforce, but that turn 1 is into the headwind. As soon as you turn through it, you're going to find a crosswind, tailwind on exit, which is horrible. But it is going to mean we're getting big slipstreams and big overtaking opportunity down the main straight.
Finely poised. It is very tight in the Formula One Championship for constructors. The driver's title is set for our champion, Max Verstappen, 4 times in a row as we get a green light and we move on to the formation. Well, that's a novel approach from George Russell, just getting inside Lando Norris's head. He led the first 100 meters down to turn 1 there.
Well, we've spoken about this before. You would, wouldn't you? Why would you not want to sort of just remind Lando that his Achilles heel has been his starts?
Yeah, you've got to press away that vulnerability, haven't you? As soon as you realise you're in the front row with a guy that's lost a lot of pole positions this year, you try and get in his head on the way round.
I saw him on the grid and he looked very intense, Lando. It looked like he was about to start the Grand Prix. And I don't want to diminish the sprint. Of course, good points at stake, especially for McLaren when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. But he normally looks pretty relaxed on the grid, but maybe it was the wind, and he had a bit of a moment on the way to the grid.
Here's the Drivers' Championship on the left-hand side. Yeah, the drivers with that reconnaissance lap to form up on the grid. This is the formation lap. A chance for everyone to assess where the conditions are. 8 points available for our winner here. 7 for second, 6 for third, all the way down to 1 point for 8th place. The Constructors' Championship is the live battle. McLaren, 608 points. Ferrari, 584. Nothing can be won today, but if you are McLaren, if you are dressed in papaya, you have to take your opportunities and score points at the places that favour you. And this circuit, last year in this so far, has favoured them.
Yeah, just a question on, if you look, we saw that in-car shot with Lando, and he was looking in his mirrors a lot as if to sort of gauge where the rest of the field are. He can control the pace. Is that a little tell that he's just a little bit out of sorts?
You want to focus on your own thing, but you don't want to create a massive gap behind you, do you, on the formation laps? You want to make sure that second place is going with you, and George has already gone ahead off the line there, so he knows, he's thinking about the Mercedes where he is. All the cars are starting on the medium tyre, so the strategy should be negated. Joe at the back is the only driver on the soft, everyone else on the mediums. Getting that start is the critical thing in a 19-lap sprint. All on the mediums. Norris, his start story this year is well told, but those Ferraris lining up their 4th and 5th with the championship at stake in the constructors need to try and get in amongst it as well.
Actually, just a thought in the start. When they do practice grid starts, it's always with relatively low fuel levels because it's the end of a practice session. They are starting with less fuel clearly in the sprint than they would have at a full Grand Prix. So maybe his issues are actually when it comes to doing heavy fuel starts.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether that is the difference. 19 laps for the sprint race. There will be 57 tomorrow for the main event, the Formula One Grand Prix. You are Visor Cam with Esteban Ocon making his way to the line. The Alpine team there watching on, and that is the last car on the grid, the only car on the Red Bull soft tyre, which should give Joe Guanyu a launch off the line. But when the rest of the field are going for the medium, that is a complete roll of the dice. The track temperature is 25 degrees, the air temperature is 21. What a view that is. It is nearly time for the green flag at the back, and it will be time to look to the lights because Formula One is about to go racing again. The final sprint race of the season is underway, and it's a good launch off the line for our pole sitter. Lando Norris got the launch that he needs. Can Oscar Piastri put pressure on George Russell for P2? The answer to that is not into the corner, maybe on the outside. It's Lando Norris who finds himself with the lead, and Oscar Piastri who roars by to take second place. A nice start for both McLarens, who are 1 and 2 at the moment. Russell drops down to third, Sainz hangs on to fourth, but it's a climb for Lewis Hamilton. Despondent yesterday. He is on the attack today. He's moved up 2 places to 5th as Norris leads Piastri on lap number 1 of 19.
And a lesser spotted Verstappen going a little bit backwards at the start. Hulkenberg's managed to jump him, but really feisty stuff there from Oscar Piastri, who you just sensed felt that he let it slip the pole position yesterday. Didn't quite get his lap together, but he's got his start together.
His ruthless racecraft is second to none. That was a superb pass around the outside of Russell, who looked like he had it held into the corner, but Piastri outside of 1 gives you the inside for 2, and then he's managed to just make a small break now into the fast corners. Horrible start from Verstappen, lost the pace to Hamilton into the first corner, was then out position. I think he might have run wide at turn 4 as well, so that's Gasly up into 7th place.
Gasly finding himself with that opportunity. The lead then for Lando Norris, then Piastri in 2nd, Russell in 3rd, then it's Sainz, Hamilton, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, Gasly, and Verstappen down in 9th position. The top 8 score points in this one. It was already Verstappen's worst ever start in a sprint race. I'm not sure he'll care too much with the title already in the bag. Now DRS is enabled, and we're going to see how powerful the slipstream is down into turn number 1. There's a half look by Lance Stroll, can't find his way past Valtteri Bottas in the battle for 12.
Well, looking way down at the back of the field, Perez, we didn't see what happened when their pit lane starts, but he's dropped a couple of seconds to Colapinto, which is a bit bizarre.
Left the pits and found a moment somewhere on the outlap when you're facing no one at that stage, just trying to get back to the pack. Hamilton's had a great start, up 2 places, and it's really made this a worst case scenario for Ferrari. McLaren now in a 1-2. One Mercedes has gone backwards, allowing the McLaren up. The other one's gone forwards, taking the place away from Charles Leclerc, who's down to 6th. And now the McLarens can think about trying to hold the pace on this medium tyre that should last for the race. Like I say, Russell's still applying the pressure. There they go, flashing into the fast stuff once again.
Lewis Hamilton saying yesterday that he expects George Russell to go for pole position in Grand Prix qualifying later on, but this is the first event of the day under the floodlights for Formula One. The sprint race, the 6th and final one of the year, and Lando Norris trying to go back-to-back with sprint victories. He's our most recent race winner, taking the sprint honours back in Sao Paulo, when Oscar Piastri moved over for him when there was still an active battle for the Formula One driver's title.
Well, from a psychological point of view, that's a big moment, big start as George Russell has a little sniff down the inside at Piastri. Not full commitment there. I think it's just really showing him I'm there, and I've got tenths to take that second place back. But just coming to your point, you say about Hamilton, if he's talking about his teammate going for pole, well, he's going to be in that qualifying session. You know, when I heard the quotes yesterday, him saying that I'm not quick anymore, I thought that had been slightly misquoted, played on, but it does seem very much like it's a sort of mental throwing in of the towel.
He's downbeat at the moment, isn't he? And his racing is very strong, and it has been all year, but his qualifying just leaves so much work to do over the long runs. He's made a couple of places now. Russell's lost a place, and there's still a Ferrari between them.
Bit of context for that, Lewis Hamilton has been out-qualified 5-1 by George Russell when it comes to sprint qualifying this year, and 17 times to 5 in the Grand Prix format.
And that is a mauling, really, in a qualifying head-to-head. We're talking about Lewis Hamilton being on the receiving end. He's never had this in his career. I can imagine when we're into 23 races now, the longest season that we've ever had, I can imagine why it would get you down. You know, you're coming to the end of a Mercedes stint, and you want to have one last hurrah, and as yet he's not able to deliver it.
Big lap coming up now for Oscar Piastri. Can he get inside DRS range? He's not doing this out of choice, really. McLaren happy with the position that they're in, gaining points, but Russell's gaining as well, and that is a bold look to the inside. Can he force Piastri off the racing line? It was a mere look last time. This lap around, far more intent from Russell.
Yeah, it was closer, wasn't he? And actually able to throw a nose down the inside at turn one. He was 1/10 closer than he was on the last lap, and that was just the difference. Piastri was just over a second away from Norris.
Just turn into me.
I think he left space, didn't he, on the inside? But if Norris would allow his teammate to be within a second, it'd create a DRS train. And at the moment, Russell's looking the fastest of those drivers at the front. Norris is happy with his teammate behind, doesn't want George Russell coming up behind.
Yeah, well, again, the not having any big braking zones on this circuit means that if, you know, he did get the DRS, as everyone got away pretty much in that grid order, but they're behind. Watch Verstappen, you're going to see Hulkenberg as he tries to go around. He gets boxed in, actually, with the two Ferraris, and that's where it then became a bit tricky.
And yeah, Hulkenberg goes by.
He's deep at 2, isn't he? But he sort of overreacted to the Ferrari. I think he was wondering if it was going to spin or something, and he dropped way off it. And then I think he's going to struggle at turn 4, and that's when Gasly gets past Verstappen as well.
The season is underway, and it's a good launch off the line for our pole sitter. And you're seeing down into turn 1, the rear-facing view, live pictures on the left-hand side. I can tell you, the chatter on the radio is McLaren have offered Oscar Piastri the DRS to try and protect his second place. This is on board with Max Verstappen in 9th position.
He's offline, and the other thing with the wind is it's blowing more sand onto the track, and no one's been on that part of the racetrack so far.
Well, oversteer than understatement.
Yeah, that car, it just wants to swap ends, and they haven't managed to get a sort of happy balance dialed in with fuel. But here's the lunge down the inside. Looks like he's got clean racetrack.
Oh.
And yeah, that actually does give you another perspective on it. You can understand why George was saying, well, hold on a minute, he cut across my bow. And that's exactly what happened with him in the Grand Prix last year with Lewis Hamilton, who then went into the gravel. But, well, look, you know, the referee's there to make the judgment. There's no call from them, so hard, but we have to assume fair.
Oh, they got away with it in terms of the contact, didn't they? It looked like Oscar really actually didn't leave the space on the inside. I thought there wasn't the contact initially, but just that clip. They are lucky to still both be in this one, second and third. And Norris is just backing off at the end of that fast section. I thought Russell would have another chance. He's very close to Piastri, but Oscar will have the DRS on this lap.
So deliberate tactics from McLaren to make sure that Piastri stays within DRS range and allows the rear wing element to open up. It gives you greater top speed, and you can see Piastri closing in. McLaren playing the team game, and it's protecting Oscar Piastri's second place. This is turn 1 on lap number 6. McLaren 1 and 2. Russell with a lot of pace, can't use it right now.
So this has got to be perfectly measured by Norris as well, because that was 8/10 onto the straight. So he's got 1/10 to play with before Piastri doesn't have DRS. But if Piastri's any closer than that, with a big headwind, no slipstream for Norris, he might actually start attacking the race leader. So it's a nice tactic in principle, but using this for the next 13 laps is not going to be easy to implement.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but I've got to assume that Norris has had the call from the pit wall rather than him trying to figure that out himself. So if that is the case, then Piastri will understand that he can use it, but don't take advantage of it.
If he can resist, as he's charging down with a big slipstream and DRS.
Yeah, the inner racing driver sometimes takes over. But he seems fairly level-headed. He's understood his role with the team as when they were still in the driver's hunt for the championship.
So there were big winners, big losers at the start of the race. Kevin Magnussen went on the attack. You're seeing a replay of it. He went fighting at the start. He's up 5 places into 10th position. Liam Lawson went the other way, lost 7 positions from 10th and found himself down to P17. Train of cars on the main straight. Lando Norris leading, 0.6 of a second ahead of Oscar Piastri. McLaren playing it perfectly, but there is so much speed on that main straight, that headwind playing a part. The gap comes down to 0.2 of a second.
And that's the knife edge for Norris out front. He's got to hope that Piastri's not going to attack him. Of course, the last sprint, they had team orders that allowed Norris ahead. So I don't know if there's going to be any of that on the pitbull thoughts either right now. But it's because Norris is just punching a hole through the wind that's coming is howling, as we said already. And yeah, we can see Lando's trying to conform with the team there and keep Oscar within a second. But because he's taking the brunt of the wind and everyone else is tucked in the sort of peloton behind him right now, it's allowed the top 5 to all be close together, and they're all getting close to Lando into turn 1.
Yeah, this is giving us a much tighter bunch of cars in the race round, which visually looks fantastic to have everyone down to Hamilton within a second of each other. Just a shout out to Magnussen. We saw it in the little in-picture screen. He went around the outside of Alonso, mugged him, and that is not an easy pass. So he may be coming to the end of this stint of his Formula 1 career, but he still proves himself to be one of the feistiest of racers out on track.
It's one for the CV, isn't it? Round the outside of Fernando Alonso, tick.
Liam Lawson recovering a position, and he goes past Joe Guan Yu. That was a lap ago. Again, very tight at the front. Jolin's wincing, seeing how close Oscar's getting to the front of the field. Here's a pass of Max Verstappen to the inside of Pierre Gasly, and Verstappen, first time he's lost positions in any race all year off the line when it comes, so he's not lost a position when it's come to the Grand Prix format, gone backwards in the same way that he's done in this race, but he's just gained a place there, and 8th position for him.
And more importantly, taken one away from Alpine in that fight in 6th as well. So Gasly will now hope that he's going to go and pass Hülkenberg, and then they can duke it out for that final point. The reason I'm wincing at the front is because Oscar's obviously not trying to pass Lando now. So McLaren are 1-2, but the way that Piastri's just holding position, you've then got Russell steaming in behind with a double slipstream in DRS, and they're all sort of emerging into the first corner together within 0.4 on the last lap. So it's super tight, and there's almost a case soon for Piastri thinking, I'm going to have to try and do something here, otherwise I'm just going to be gazumped by Russell.
Yeah, McLaren, the upside is that you run in formation, you protect second place, comfortably outscoring Ferrari here. Good points for the World Championship and their battle to win the Constructors' Championship for the first time since 1998. The downside is we've seen so many moments into the gravel across this weekend. We've seen so many snaps of oversteer and wide moments from understeer that it could be, as Russell thinks about the late lunge, but the corner is a long one, and Piastri knew that was coming. No momentum at this stage. Because one moment for Norris, and you could lose not just a second, you could find yourself tumbling down the order to 5th or 6th.
It does seem that George is comfortable on that narrower line into turn 1. It's a long corner. Oscar naturally taking a slightly wider line and then cutting back and focusing on his exit, but it does visually make him look like he's vulnerable. It would not take much at all. If he loses out on that DRS to his teammate Norris, then George is coming through.
So it's 0.9 of a second. Norris continuing to look in the mirrors. McLaren know that they're in a great position at the moment. 1-2, only a sprint race, but that would mean 8 points for Norris, 7 points for Piastri. You've got Carlos Sainz in 4th, you've got Charles Leclerc in 6th position. He is in the DRS train. Hamilton has dropped back out of DRS, so it might be an opportunity. There is Lewis Hamilton, and his future teammate closing down the gap, 0.7 of a second. Live timing for you. Max Verstappen is going to close down that gap to Hülkenberg in the battle for 7th place. And it's McLaren, then Mercedes, Ferrari, Mercedes, and then Ferrari. And the closest battle that we've got that's an active battle, that's a real battle with 10 laps to go, is the one for 5th place. And we're showing you that across the line as once again the McLarens are close and that defensive tactic working for Piastri. No chance to make the move for the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc.
What, Julian, other tools does George have other than DRS? What else can he do right now as we're running out of laps in this race?
Well, you've got energy deployment from the battery, so that's the big thing. Let's see what happened to Checo then. Green light.
So you've got to wait for all the cars to go past before you get the green light.
Wow, he's like pulling away as if he had, you know, a dozen eggs in the back of the car.
This is what it looked like on board for Franco Colapinto. There you go, there's the green light. Thinks about doing it on the outside, does so on the outside.
That is brilliant. Brilliant instinctive stuff from Colapinto. That is another sign that he's not only fast, but Julian's looking a bit confused as to whether he was allowed to do that.
No, I'm sure he was. It was a green light, and Perez wasn't moving. I'm wondering if Perez wanted a private test session in this one. Why doesn't he want to join the fray? He just wasn't accelerating. There was no pickup of revs. It didn't look like a clutch issue. He just wasn't driving away.
Was it Brazil? He was sort of following people out the pit lane, and Max went past on the grass in one of the free practice sessions.
Yeah, you're allowed to do it when the green light's on. As soon as you're, especially if the car's stricken in the fast lane, you can go round.
A strange start to the contest for Perez. He remains 1.2 seconds behind Colapinto at the back of the field. Soft tyres were not the right tyres for Joe Guan Yu. He's 7 seconds away. Now serious deg on that tyre, and he's dropping away from the pack. They just tried something different, given that they were the last car on the grid. Two started in the pit lane, Colapinto and Perez. You saw how they swapped over. There are fine margins on the left-hand side of your screen on the timing tower, but no chance of overtakes at the moment. Let's see if that changes as we get into the closing stages of the race. Norris has just done the fastest middle sector of the sprint so far.
Do you want to know a nice thing? Is that we're going to have no idea what pace any of these cars have before the Grand Prix tomorrow.
It's a very good point. The extra homework is not being completed here. They're in a trade.
They're all just driving around at Norris's chosen pace. If Russell was to pass Piastri, has Lando got any more in the tank to then up his pace? At the moment, he's just bunching them up. He's happy in this DRS train that Piastri is on the edge of there. But he doesn't have to extract everything he can from the car. And so, as a result, you've got the Ferraris there as well.
Oscar almost has DRS to Russell, so if you can do maybe a tenth quicker, that would help.
Up the pace, please, is the request to our race leader. You saw a replay of Fernando Alonso having a moment, took him wide in the middle part of the lap, but he remains in 11th place.
Was that not a slightly complicated way to say go a little bit quicker?
Yeah, they're explaining why they want him to go quicker, which is an odd thing to have to do in a race as well, isn't it?
And they're assuming on, perfect radio transmission and the driver, not having wax in his ears and all that other good stuff. Because as pure as it sounds in our broadcast, sometimes you get other factors that make it difficult to hear what's been said by the engineer.
Yeah, you do get a lot of lengthy radio messages, don't you, through time. I'm amazed at how much does get translated. Even what we're talking 2016, 2017, 7 years ago, the amount of things you had to repeat, or you wouldn't be absolutely sure on what it was. But the radios are getting clearer and clearer. They're now able to have some nice debriefs as they're going round. And McLaren there, or Lando being ordered to go quicker, so that Piastri now can drop Russell from the DRS. They're now thinking this is their time to make a break. Problem is, as Norris is going quicker, it's more likely at the moment that Piastri is going to drop away from him, and then he's going to be a sitting duck. So it's still in the balance.
It's interesting, those series of very fast corners there. Lando just resting his head on the side of the cockpit already. It's very early, especially at this stage of the Formula 1 season. You'd think they've got necks like bulls at this phase. You used to have Brazil was like second or third race of the season. You have done all your clockwise winter testing, turn up anti-clockwise, and you go, oh, my neck's not quite there.
Here's an opportunity for the Ferrari in 6th position to turn it into 5th to the inside. The two future teammates nearly banging wheels. And Charles Leclerc's looking for 5th place, but Lewis Hamilton doesn't want to give it up yet. And Hamilton versus Leclerc is resuming next year, but is that a preview of what's to come? Because Hamilton takes it back, or can he? No, sweeping around the outside to finally claim 5th place. Well, if that's a sign of things to come, bring it on.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Little bit of wheel-to-wheel action there. Hamilton just getting a bit deep into the turn, and that will release Leclerc. But, well, he tried to defend it. A little bit of contact at the middle of turn 1 as well.
just a bit of wheel to wheel. It's great racing, wasn't it? Went through all the way up towards turn 4 as well. Let's have another look. Big slipstream for Leclerc. This is the closest he was. Went down the inside. The thing is with this first corner, it encourages you to hold it round the outside. Lewis gave Charles plenty of space. It wasn't quite like the Piastri-Russell moment. And then he has the inside for turn 2, at which point Leclerc was very aggressive at holding it around the outside, and they were really respectful with each other, actually.
I think that's a sort of hallmark of Hamilton's career, actually. I've said before, he's one of the cleanest successful drivers, the most successful driver in Formula One. He doesn't get involved in many incidents. George Russell is going to have another lunge.
On board with the driver currently in third. Will he be given a car's width? Aggressive defence from Oscar Piastri. We saw it from the nose cam. Piastri still in second place, but he's lost that DRS, and Russell is on the charge.
Yeah, he wasn't sure whether to go right to the inside and be pinned there, or to think about the outside. In the end, just went for the inside, but didn't like turning into such a fast corner from such a narrow angle. So Piastri hangs on, and now he'll desperately try and get back to his teammate who's just set the fastest lap.
This is going to be 3 cars as well. When we go trackside, Carlos Sainz is going to be right there in the battle. There he is, and we have a look at Sainz chasing Russell, chasing Piastri to be second in the sprint on lap 14 and 19.
Me, that was late. Twice now.
Yeah, look, he's playing to the referee a little bit, isn't he? But it's just interesting that Norris has now opened out that gap. It's almost like, okay, I've had enough of trying to tow you around. But let's just look at this. Well, in fairness, that was quite a late reaction move. Not enough to warrant a penalty, but he was definitely watching the mirrors.
Oh, he definitely was, but I think that was okay from Piastri. I think the one earlier where there was a bit of contact was more dubious, where he didn't leave a car's width, but because it was such light contact, I think they've waved play on that one. So Russell will have to try again. It was on the cusp, but I think that was okay.
Norris backed off to give Piastri DRS, so Piastri does have DRS again, now 0.3 of a second between the McLarens into the first turn. Norris got the launch that he needed, got the start that he was looking for. He's held the lead ever since. Great battle in the first 2 corners of the racetrack between Piastri and Russell that carries on
I'm starting
raging.
to struggle with the front, so do I save him or?
Yeah, please help Oscar.
Yeah, this is a great example of teamwork and strategic racing with 4 laps to go. It does seem that he's, who's coming in from the nose? That's Perez. That might explain then his lackluster performance. Or is this actually a test opportunity to try something different, because he's basically running second last?
It's a test, isn't it, for Perez? Starting a sprint anyway, you got 19 laps, you're starting from the pit lane, you got no hope of coming through. So I think Perez wasn't really that interested in getting involved with anyone. Just wants to find a bit of pace for qualifying later.
Understandably, McLaren are looking for a 1-2 here and are desperate to protect Oscar Piastri, because the Drivers' Championship is settled, but the Constructors' Championship, they are trying to win it for the first time this century. And you've got Ferrari there gaining 9 points, but McLaren going nicely as it stands. Norris scoring 8, Piastri scoring 7. What's the gap across the line? It's 0.8 of a second, so DRS still for Piastri. And McLaren playing this really nicely on their way to a 1-2. Can Russell regroup and find a way back by? He dropped down to third on the opening turn.
So Norris saying he's starting to struggle with the left front. There's a lot of fast right-hand corners on this circuit, and that does just damage the left front, wears it away. And that's going to be a limiting factor. But as he'd said that, he just set the fastest lap of the race. So I think that's just him saying, please, can I go and just check out and build myself a buffer? He doesn't want to have to go slow at this stage, but the team need him to, because we've seen just twice now that Piastri drops away from the DRS, and Russell is poised to make a move as soon as that chance comes.
McLaren came into this weekend expecting it to be a circuit that suited them. They had both cars on the podium here last year, with Piastri in second and Norris in third. And no one got ahead of Verstappen many times last season. It gave them hope that they were going to carry that form in, and they won the sprint race with Piastri 1 year ago. Looks like it's Norris's turn this time around as they continue to manage the gap at the front.
Interestingly, Leclerc's made no inroads on the top 4, so the pace is obviously good enough from Norris, even if he is backing into his teammate slightly. Leclerc's still over 3 seconds away from Sainz, and actually is unable to shake off Hamilton still.
Yeah, and Verstappen running about 1.6 seconds behind Hülkenberg. Another really strong performance from the Haas duo, with P-Mag bringing it home in 10th place, pulling that gap to Alonso.
this will be big points for them as well. They've only got a 1-point buffer to Alpine, who've got a second place in their armoury as well. So if they tie on points, Alpine will get ahead. So this will build something of a gap for Haas.
Yeah, if you were level on points, it goes to count back, and it's your best result to split the difference. As Jolien says, that second place in the Sao Paulo Grand Prix would give the position to Alpine, but Hulkenberg delivering a top 10 in sprint qualifying yesterday and getting that good start. And Verstappen has got the gap down, but he's not within DRS, and Verstappen's going to score a single point here, only the top 8 scoring in this format.
They were slower on the last lap than Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg's going very well in the Haas. In fact, he's as quick as the leaders. He's within 10 seconds of the race lead still. Hulkenberg in 7th. This is a very strong performance.
Getting a replay of Alexander Albon into the first turn of the racetrack. Just flirting with the gravel on the outside.
Yeah, a little bit of understeer. I'm surprised he kept his foot in on that one, because you start to feel it build, don't you? As you've got the steering lock in, you start to understand if you're getting offline. That wasn't like a sudden snap on the power. So risking all.
No DRS for Oscar Piastri. George Russell closing in. Is he close enough for another late lunge? Only for a look. Not this time around. Fastest lap of the race now belongs to Charles Leclerc. He's 3 seconds away from his team.
Yeah, so now he's found a bit more pace, 4/10 quicker than Sainz on the last lap. I'm amazed at how many drivers are able to put a wheel through the gravel and not absolutely lose the car. Do you remember Shanghai earlier on in the season, where there was some whopping moments out of that final corner where they added the gravel strip? You're fully loaded up, you drop your right-hand tyres into the gravel, and it just spits the car suddenly into a spin. Everyone's just absorbing the gravel at the moment.
I wonder if it's to do with the actual depth of the cutout in the tarmac, because one of the peculiarities is they have to take that gravel away and refill the cutout for MotoGP. So maybe with that in mind, we just haven't gone as deep. Therefore, there isn't the sort of the displacement and compression of the gravel when you dip a wheel.
On the penultimate lap, Haas trying to finish in 6th position. Hulkenberg trying to finish in the top 10 of the Drivers' Championship as well. It's where he starts today's race, and you can see that things are going well for Haas as it stands.
So Norris is going, he's broken away from Piastri. In fact, he's just backed off massively at the final corner. He was trying to set a fastest lap there, and Piastri hasn't got DRS.
He hasn't. That leaves him vulnerable on the 19th and final lap. George Russell again with that different line, but trying to scare Piastri off the road. It's not going to work at this stage of proceedings, and Piastri has done the hard bit. He just needs to bring it home now across the final 3.3 miles, and McLaren will claim a 1-2 in the sprint.
Visually, great track. Drivers are loving the high-speed nature. The one thing it's missing is a big braking zone. It would be awesome to have a hairpin at turn 1. There'd be a lot more overtaking.
I actually don't mind turn 1 as it is, because we're getting these wheel-to-wheel. The Leclerc-Hamilton fight was so good, but it's just a very odd way of racing, isn't it, this, where drivers are just backing in to create the truck and trailer DRS, which is basically Carlos Sainz's ruling from last year, and people saw how it was working, and now it's just become the de facto. If you have a 1-2, especially when there's only one DRS zone around here, you can back in. So there's not many times where Russell's had a big overspeed, and on that last time, just the slipstream was enough to keep Piastri in second.
This is on board with George Russell, who has run out of corners. This is the 19th and final lap. It will be back-to-back sprint victories as Lando Norris comes tight out of the final line, comes across the line, and Oscar Piastri takes the sprint win. At the very end, Oscar Piastri goes past Lando Norris, and the McLaren swap on the 19th and final lap. On the last corner, Piastri beats Norris across the line by 1/10 of a second, and there was a twist in the tail. Back-to-back sprint wins in Qatar for Oscar Piastri.
Well, we'll find out, won't we, in time? But we weren't handed a copy of that particular script before going into the sprint. But I wonder if that's a little thank you, a soft thank you, for the support that Oscar's given him during the course of the season.
It's a direct reply to Brazil, isn't it, that one?
Yep. Yeah, thank you for the teamwork. Much appreciated. And great load of points, so thanks everybody.
he sounds buzzed to have won it, doesn't he?
Well, it kind of sums up a little bit what the drivers think of the sprint format. I like it personally in that it gives a real consequence to the first day of practice and then more entertainment for the crowd. It's not trying to be the Grand Prix, but I still think it has value. You know, I would have been quite happy to add a few sprints to the CV, but that just feels a little unfortunate. We've got many examples of that in the past where drivers swap a win, and it slightly devalues it, I think, for the audience.
I think the manner of which that's just happened as well is particularly tough. When Norris has spent the whole race protecting his teammate and then giving him the win as well on top of it, Piastri won't mind, it's a win. Norris, I don't think, will be too cut up that he's lost that one either. It's just a strange way to end it. And it's complicated as well, because trying to execute that, the top 4 finished within 0.4 of a second.
Nice work, dude.
Well, Norris being thanked on the radio, I'll tell you that. We did not expect that to happen round the final corner. So Piastri should have won in Sao Paulo, gave it to Norris. Norris returns the favour and gives it back to Piastri, and they've both won sprints the last 2 times that we've won it. And in the constructors, they score exactly the same number of points. The race decided by a 1/10 of a second.
Yeah, be happy families at McLaren, and then they can. That sort of scrubs out the team orders from the entire year, doesn't it? That's all that happened was one in Brazil, and it's balanced out now straight away at the next sprint. Imagine if Russell had snuck through on the run to the line. That had to be perfectly measured there.
Yeah, a question that has to be asked is, was that something that was always planned? They knew this was going to happen if they found themselves in this, and in fairness to Oscar, he had to work to get himself into second place.
Lando said all year he doesn't want team orders, hasn't he? He's always been very much, people have been asking him, you need team orders, papaya rules, all the rest of the fallout from Monza particularly. And he said, I want to win on my own merit. He had team orders once, and at the very next opportunity, he can thank Oscar and give that exact result back to him.
Well, the race was decided at the final corner, not perhaps the way that we thought it would be, but it's Oscar Piastri who's taken the win. It's reminiscent of some of the swapping over that Ferrari used to do in the early 2000s at the final corner. Austrian Grand Prix in 2002, Barrichello and Schumacher swapped out of the last corner of the last lap. But it's Piastri who gets the favour repaid after Sao Paulo. Lando Norris finishing in second. Russell completing the top 3, 0.4 of a second away. And then Sainz was 4th, Leclerc was in 5th, and our point scorers were rounded out by Lewis Hamilton, Nico Hülkenberg, and Verstappen scored just the 1 point after losing positions off the line.
You mentioned that Austria result. I remember well the fans opposite showing their disapproval with some mild booing. I think it's way too polite for that to happen here.
Oscar he doesn't look like he's just won the race. There's not no one's really smiling at McLaren. They just finished 1-2, extended the championship lead. Zach's come in all full of energy, and I think
he's loving it. This is great for the constructors.
And when you're Oscar, you're thinking, I didn't quite have the pace in that one. And remember, the Grand Prix is still coming up, so there's still things to work on. And that's the image. Very smiling Zach Brown and 2 slightly nonplussed drivers.
Here's the moment that Lando Norris looked up, saw the checkered flag first, opened the door to Oscar Piastri to take the sprint win. Formula One in 2024. Nothing is guaranteed, not even the winner out of the final corner.
They don't win straightforwardly, do they?
But they love a debrief by the looks of things, because it's another team order moment after spending all of the final stint of the Hungarian Grand Prix deciding whether he'd give Oscar that win. Lando pulls over, hands another one. All smiles from Zach Brown. The headline, the overall headline though, 1-2 for McLaren, and they are getting closer to the Constructors' Championship. James Hinchcliffe is speaking to the top 3.
And third place today in the sprint race, George Russell for Mercedes. Look, you had a very exciting race there with Oscar Piastri. Lost the position off the start, but just walk us through some of those battles and those runs down to turn 1.
I mean, it was very close going to turn 1 on a couple of occasions. It was obviously so frustrating every lap. Lando backing up, giving Oscar the DRS. Obviously, I understand why they did that, but when you're out here, you're fighting, you want to give it everything, and you want to put a race on for the fans, it was just pretty infuriating. But nevertheless, it was, P3 this afternoon is going to be the important one.
And so thinking about this afternoon, tires are a big talking point here at Qatar. How do the tires hold up? You had those mediums for the entire 19 laps. Did they hold up the whole time, or did you learn a lot for this afternoon as well?
Yeah, they were definitely dropping a little bit, to be honest. I struggled towards the end, but I think Lando had some good pace. Oscar was struggling a little bit. So it would have been good to be able to go head-to-head with Lando and see what the true pace would have been, as I think he had quite a lot in the pocket, just giving Oscar the DRS.
Yeah, well, less than a 10th off pole yesterday. Let's see what you got tonight.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Cheers, guys.
Second place, Lando Norris. That was an exciting final lap. But look, let's start at the beginning. Good getaway. You seem to lead the race comfortably. Did you have a lot of pace in hand as you held back to just try to keep DRS range for Oscar?
A little bit. It's always difficult to know. But we scored 1-2. That's what we were aiming for today. We've got maximum points, so we're happy. We're happy as a team. We've executed things perfectly, and I think the pace was good. I probably could have pushed a little bit more than what I was doing. But we wanted to keep the others behind, so we tried to help out and not let George get too close, So we did our job, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, it was close at the end there, though. A little bit of payback maybe for Brazil. How tight was it? Were you concerned that you were not going to be able to orchestrate that? I mean, it was a 10th and a second between you and Oscar, and only 3 more back to George. That was tight.
I know. It was probably a bit closer than what I was wanting. Yeah, but I planned to do it since Brazil, So, just what I thought was best. It's probably a little bit sketchy. The team told me not to do it, but I thought I could get away with it, and we did. So honestly, I don't mind. I'm not here to win sprint races. I'm here to win races and a championship, but that's not gone to plan, So I did the best we could, and I look forward to tomorrow.
Okay, real quick, let's talk about the physicality of this place. It's so fast. It's so tough on the drivers. You've done 19 laps. How was it?
It was tough. Yeah, my neck's not too happy, So. Yes, it's going to be a difficult race tomorrow. I mean, these conditions, these cold conditions, the wind, it's a lot quicker than last year, and it's even more physical, which I didn't think was possible, So it's tricky, but that's a challenge we got to deal with. I need to hit the gym maybe a bit more, but all good otherwise.
All right, congratulations and best luck this afternoon.
Thank you, mate.
And your winner for the second time in a sprint format, second time in a row here in Qatar, Oscar Piastri. Look, it started right off the green. You got that great move around George, and then really for you, it was all about defense for the first part of the race.
It was about defense for the whole race, to be honest. I had a good start and a good turn one, obviously, and then, just didn't quite have the pace. I think I killed the front a little bit early on, and then, I was struggling a bit for the rest of the sprint, but some great teamwork. I think without that help, it would have been a much more difficult sprint. So, nice to have a McLaren 1-2.
Now you drive around in race format, you're 3.5 seconds slower than what you guys are going to be doing in qualifying here in a few hours. So mentally, how do you change, how do you prepare for the next time that you strap in the car just in a few hours here to be driving that much faster?
To be honest, here it's probably the smallest change from qualifying to the race. I think in a lot of places it's 6 or 7 seconds, and the grip feels much different. Here, we're still pushing pretty much flat out in the race, so it'll be a change for sure. But I think we've got a few tweaks we want to try and make, and hopefully make the car a bit quicker and make the driver a bit quicker as well.
And now that you got a sense of it from qualifying yesterday, do you think there's enough in it? I know you said a couple little mistakes on your lap. You got a legitimate shot at pole?
I think so, yeah. It's very, very tight. I think from first to fifth or sixth was only 2 or 3 tenths, so there's not much margin for error. But I think we've got a few things we can improve a bit, and I think we're in for a shout. But everyone's keeping us on our toes.
All right, well, congratulations, best luck this afternoon, and now let's go to the presentation of the trophies.
Thank you to James Hinchcliffe. Hinch asking the questions there. Of the top 3, Lando Norris orchestrating that move. Was told by the team he didn't need to do it. And payback comes in the form of the trophies. McLaren maximizing their pace. Norris playing the team game to keep Piastri ahead of Russell, and then finding himself with the option to give the Sao Paulo sprint win back to Oscar Piastri after they swapped for the driver's title. He chose to do so, and the top four finished covered by 0.4 of a second. F1 sprint providing action all the way to the end of the last lap of the sprint season. That's our sixth and final miniature contest, and this is the moment where it was decided.
It is next lap, last lap.
Yes, but don't worry about that. We finish in this order. Finish in this order, we're happy.
So Norris was told by Will Joseph to finish in the order, but he never wanted team orders this year, and he felt the need to repay the favour from Sao Paulo. Norris taking the choice on his own to overrule the team and to give back the win that Piastri handed to him in Sao Paulo at the next sprint race here in Qatar. You don't get many races settled by 1/10 of a second. This season's had everything, including McLaren swapping at the final corner of the last lap. It means that Oscar Piastri takes his second sprint win, and they have both come here in Qatar. Lando Norris is in second place, George Russell in third, and McLaren crucial points gained over Ferrari, who finished fourth and fifth with Sainz and Leclerc. Hamilton in sixth, Hülkenberg adding another point, a couple of points for Haas, beating Max Verstappen, the last of the scorers. Ninth was Pierre Gasly, 10th was Kevin Magnussen, who made up 5 places at the start of the race. Fernando Alonso was in 11th, and then it was Bottas, Stroll, Ocon, Albon, Lawson, Tsunoda, and Colapinto. Zhou Guanyu was on the Red Bull tyre, had to make a stop and finish on the medium, and Sergio Perez changed the nose and is the last of the 20 cars. My thanks to Jolyon Palmer, my thanks to David Coulthard, and my thanks to everyone in that picture for giving us a frantic finish to the Formula One sprint race season. We'll see you for qualifying for the Grand Prix later on when Formula One returns.